Peter Jackson has a huge variety of films, from Frodo's epic journey in The Lord of the Rings to the not as epic but occasionally epic King Kong movie from 2006 to the visually stunning crime drama Heavenly Creatures. He has made a name for himself as the third highest grossing director in the industry. To say that the man has done a lot would definitely be an understatement. He has been making movies since 1976. He started making shorts with his friends in a Super 8 camera, and now he has 22 movies under his belt. Now, obviously you don't go straight from making shorts to literally one of the greatest trilogies of all time. You can fight me on that, by the way. In this video, I'm going to be talking about an era of Peter Jackson that you may or may not be familiar with. Before his mainstream breakout with the aforementioned Heavenly Creatures in 1994, Peter Jackson made 3 movies that for the sake of this video, I will be calling a trilogy due to their similarities. Before I go any further, I want to provide a trigger warning for gore, sexual assault, and pretty much everything else, and that may be surprising for people who are already fans of Peter Jackson, but these 3 films are known as SPLATSTICK films due to the mixture of their humorous and gory nature. Also, spoiler warning for these films, but who cares, these movies came out like 3 decades ago. Going in chronological order, the first film I will be talking about is Bad Taste from 1987. Peter Jackson's directorial debut took a painstaking 4 years of filming on weekends with his friends who made up the cast and crew. Bad Taste is a sci-fi comedy horror about a small town whose residents disappear and is replaced by aliens who enjoy the taste of humans. I just want to point out how well the cover art captures the entire feel of this movie. From the instant I saw the artwork, I knew I was going to love this film, and I did. As I was doing research for this video, I found out that Bad Taste never even had a script. Jackson just had the bare ideas for a story about aliens and a group of men known just as the Boys that try to stop them, and he just went with it. I can't give him enough credit because he also did all of the special effects himself, both the gore and the alien costumes, and he even played 2 characters in the film that interact and fight on screen, and it works perfectly. So like I said earlier, this movie is really gory, and that is a trend in his first 3 films, and the gore is definitely not in Bad Taste. It looks both really good and does a lot more than just being some guts exploding out of a body or a head being smashed. Some of the special effects for this film are actually major story contributing points. In a scene where Jackson's character Derek is trying to fend off some aliens on a cliff, in this scene he's also fighting himself. This is what I was referring to earlier. He takes quite the tumble. Luckily his fall is broken by some bloody seagulls and his skull cracks open, leaving some of his brain matter on the ground. While the description of this is pretty fucking gross, Jackson presents it in a way that is comical. Derek picks up the pieces of his brain on the ground and puts it back into his head. These events cause Derek to act loopy and dazed throughout the majority of the rest of the movie. He later even ties a belt around his head so that his skull stops coming open, which happens a few more times in this movie than you would think. Another good scene where the special effects contribute a lot to the story is when the boys sneak into the aliens' hideout. In this house, they see an alien who gets sick and proceeds to vomit continuously into a bowl, filling it with a blue-green chunky sludge. On screen, this looks disgusting, that being a good thing, and behind the scenes, it's way more impressive. Jackson made a puppet mold of his head with a tube and a funnel to make it look like the alien who just leaned over this bowl is vomiting without stopping. The aliens then pass the bowl around to each other and take some sips from this communal puke pot, which one of the boys indulges in a little too much of, and the aliens have to take it away from him. This is once again another really gross scene that has a funny resolution, and this movie is filled with similar moments. In a short documentary about the making of this film, Jackson's mother expressed concern about the gory nature of the film, but Jackson eased those concerns by saying,
As he said, there's a laugh with every drop of blood, Mum.
Which I think is a great way to sum up this movie. Peter Jackson's second movie, Meet the Feebles, is about a Muppet-style puppet variety show and the sleazy side of show business.
Put your hands together for the fabulous Feebles Variety Hour!
It starts off pretty lightheartedly with a music number and takes a pretty sharp left turn just a couple minutes after with this rat prick named Trevor calling the star of the show Heidi a fat slag. This quick turn in tone sets the rest of the movie up as this variety show and its cast descend into what I can only call chaos. This is definitely not something you should show your kids or anyone at all. You shouldn't even watch this film if you're sensitive to literally anything. This movie has it all, from violent sexual assault scenes to a massacre of the entire cast at the end. It's definitely not for everyone, but man is this movie fucking hilarious. Around 18 minutes in, a worm is trying to move a barrel and accidentally sends it rolling down a hallway, splattering like 3 or 4 helpless little feebles. Trevor the rat then proceeds to pick one of these up and starts eating it, saying,
"Not a bad little meat patty."
And this sent me to hell for laughing so hard. I think my favorite bit of this movie comes from an STD-ridden rabbit. Harry the rabbit has a 3-way in a dressing room sometime during the film, and afterwards he begins to feel and look very sick. He starts getting blisters all over his face and his eyes go bloodshot. Later on, his doctor tells him that he has the big one, implying that Harry is suffering from AIDS. Yes, I know AIDS is very serious, but it's just very different to watch a sleazy rabbit go through this. Eventually, his doctors call him back and tells him that his test results were wrong, and he actually just has a case of the bunny pox, and that he's not going to die from AIDS. Overjoyed by this, he goes to tell his friends in the Feebles cast, but his joy is cut short by a blast to the head by the star of the show herself, Heidi. This dark, cynical comedy makes the movie feel really, really unique. You guys remember that Happy Time Murders movie about the killer Muppets came out in 2018 or 2019? Well, this is that, but turned up to 11.
Eat leg, you man-stealing slut!
Finally, his third movie, Braindead, or Dead Alive if you live in the US, is a horror comedy about a boy whose mom turns into a zombie and the ensuing horror that follows.
I kick ass for the Lord.
This one is my personal favorite of the trilogy, and it also is the first one of these that I've seen. It opens up on Skull Island, where some researchers are in search of a certain monkey. No, not the one that has an affinity for smacking giant lizards around, but a rat monkey, which a tribe of people on the island don't want to let loose. I think it's interesting how the beginning of this movie is set on Skull Island, since Jackson would later go on to direct a King Kong movie. In my headcanon, these movies are in the same universe, so in the future, if King Kong ever fights a giant zombie monster thing, you heard it from me first. Anyways, the monkey makes its way to a zoo where it's put on display with the other monkeys. Our main man Lionel becomes the love interest of probably the most attractive human I've ever seen in my whole life, and they end up on a date at the zoo. While they're at the zoo, they discover Lionel's mom is there as well, and she gets bitten by this weird rat monkey, and then she proceeds to stomp on it violently until it dies. After this, in a few short days, his mom becomes a zombie, and Lionel ends up trapping her in the basement. As the movie goes on, more and more people accidentally stumble upon the zombie mom and get turned into zombies themselves, while Lionel is trying to cover this whole thing up by keeping them in the basement. Easily the funniest part of the whole movie is after a zombie baby is born. If you want to know how that happened, just go watch the movie. But after the zombie baby is born, Lionel takes the baby to a park for whatever reason. This zombie baby gets loose, starts a fight with Lionel, and Lionel has no idea what to do. He starts punching the baby, slamming it against the playground, and while people are disgusted nearby, they don't know it's a zombie baby. This whole scene is perfect. The baby goes flying in the air after getting launched off a seesaw, and then he takes a smack to the face by a wood swing that Lionel throws at him. Eventually, a party is thrown at Lionel's house, unbeknownst to him, and the zombies get loose and start infecting the whole party. Jackson is an absolute legend at visual comedy. Lionel tries to run from the zombies but struggles to gain any traction because he's running in place in a pool of blood, kind of like in an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. He starts walking on the slew of zombie parts on the floor so he can get away. Describing a scene like that does not do the film any justice at all. It's way more funny to see it happen on screen, which I definitely recommend. Following this, Lionel finds a lawnmower to defend himself, and what happens next is easily one of the greatest and most gory scenes in cinema history.
Party's over.
You can just imagine what happens when you take Peter Jackson from the 80s, give him zombies, and give him a lawnmower. Of the 3 movies I've talked about today, this is definitely the best one in my opinion, and if you would like to get into these movies or are interested in any of them, I definitely think you should start here and then watch whichever ones you want after. Peter Jackson credits his imagination to him being an only child. Because he didn't have anyone else to play with around his own age, he had to make up his own games, his own props and toys, so that he could play as a kid. And I think that these 3 movies really show how creative this man is. In the documentary I briefly mentioned when talking about bad taste, Peter Jackson says that he loves making movies because he can show anyone anything that he'd like. He knew that movies were his best outlet for him to be creative. Alrighty, so you made it through my first video. Like if you liked the video, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and share it with your friends if you think that they're interested in the same topic. I'd like to make a lot more kinds of videos in this sort of like essay commentary fashion about music, movies, games, lots of stuff. So if you want to see more content like that, then stick around. I'll be pushing out more things in the future. I wish everybody who watched this video and stuck around to the end a wonderful day, and to everybody who didn't watch this video, fuck you.